The following presentation is by Ben Smith Productions. Any use of this live stream, including screen recording, re-uploading, is strictly prohibited.
Alright, everybody, it is 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. Happy Mother's Day to you all as we welcome you guys to this live stream of the NBA Draft Lottery. We haven't done it in 3 years, but I figured since it's another big draft lottery year, I figure we do another draft lottery. Live from Chicago, where they typically do the NBA draft lottery. One of the teams will fall and get the number one overall pick, which most likely will be AJ Dybonza, who is a superstar player at BYU, playing 1 year, and there's a lot of players that you look out in the draft as well. Caden Boozer's out there, and there's a lot of draft prospects that are going to be getting their name called on June 23rd. And we are, with that being said, that's legit 44 days away. So 44 days away till draft night of the NBA draft. We will stream it right here on our channel, but the draft lottery, we do this every single year. We haven't done it in the last 2 years. Last year I was at Kendrick Lamar, so I couldn't really do the draft lottery. Secondly, I couldn't do the draft lottery in 24. I think I had a thing going on that day. You know what it was? I had an event for my school that night, so it kind of threw me off, and I couldn't do the NBA draft lottery that night. So it's been 3 years, and I did it today, and it's a 3 p.m. draft lottery. It's the first time ever that they're doing it this early. They always do it at 6 p.m. Con Kneppel is there. Cam Boozer along with Carlos Boozer. Jordan. AJ Dybonza, correction, is there today as well. As the Pacers have one of the highest odds for the number one overall pick. They haven't had the number one overall pick ever in franchise history. They can make history today for the number one overall pick. The reveal will happen in about 15 minutes time, however. But let's look at it. Let's real quick look at the odds for the draft. First, it will be the Washington Wizards, who had a 14% chance in winning the lottery this year. So was last year as well. They had and then the Pacers with a 14% odds as well, with the Brooklyn Nets at 14% as well. The Brooklyn Nets, as you know, would have won the 2017 draft lottery if they didn't trade Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett from the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics had won the lottery in 2017, but they ended up trading it away for the number 3 overall pick, where they drafted Jason Tatum. The Jazz, however, have an 11.5 point favorites to win it, along with the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento was in the lottery in 24. Last year they weren't in the lottery, I don't think. I don't think they were in the draft lottery last year, however. Yeah, they weren't in the draft lottery last year. So, in 24 was their last time they were in the draft lottery, and they picked Devin Carter from Providence. As you know, my Friars. And then The Grizzlies back in there as well. They were not in there last year. They had the 16th pick that they traded from Portland. They were in the draft lottery, but they switched it. They switched picks. However, Atlanta has a not 6.8% of winning the lottery as well. The Dallas Mavericks had one of the lowest odds last year in the draft lottery, won the lottery, and they selected the rookie of the year, Cooper Flagg from Duke. The Chicago Bulls, their head coach Billy Donovan was dismissed after 6 seasons with the team. They're back at it at the NBA draft lottery as well. They had the 12th pick last year where they picked Noah Esengu. The Bucks, however, didn't have a first. The first time that they've been in a lottery since Giannis Antetokounmpo's second season in the NBA. And it's been that long since they have a 0% chance of winning the draft lottery. The Warriors, however, last year they were not in the lottery. They were a playoff team and whatnot. They were a playoff team last year. And they had the 20th pick. They traded it with in the part of the deal with Jimmy Butler. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who have a 1.5 point favorite of winning the draft lottery, the NBA champions. They have this pick as well. They did not have a first round pick last year, so if they win the draft lottery, it will spike them high, and AJ DeBonza will join a team with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and crew. The Miami Heat, however, this is the first season that they made it, that they didn't make it past the play-in tournament, and they were eliminated from the playoff contention. And the Charlotte Hornets, who have a 0.5% favorite, have a chance in going back at it. Last year they had the number 4 overall pick where they picked Con Kneppel. And that is your draft lottery odds today. As the NBA draft lottery, they just went into commercial break. One of the highest stars is AJ DeBonza and Darren Peterson, along with Cam Boozer. So you have the big 3 off the board. AJ DeBonza, kind of a little bit of an off year. He averaged, I believe, 23 this year, AJ DeBonza. He averaged 25, 6, and 3 this year. Wouldn't say really an off year on his. He led the entire college. He led the entire NCAA with 25.5 points. He's a freshman. He was a freshman last year by way of Brockton, Massachusetts. His last game, we saw him drop 35 points on Texas. And don't get me wrong, he's always been a good player. He committed to BYU when he could have committed to Duke. But, Duke had the players already. They have the players already, like Cam and Caden Boozer, the twins. Caden staying back for one more year, and however, Caden staying back for one more year. Cam Boozer's going pro this year, so he could probably fall to the 2nd or 3rd pick of the draft. Darren Peterson, however, was the second team All Big 12, a Big 12 All Freshman this year at Kansas. Very star-studded player as well. He averaged 20.2 points per game, along with 4.2 rebounds and 1.6 assists per game. So 24-1 for Darren Peterson. His last game, he played against St. John's. He averaged 21 points with 4 rebounds, No assist, however, in that game against St. John's. St. John's was another team that was a big lookout in the college basketball playoffs after they won the Big East last year in college basketball. And on the other hand, Cam Boozer last year, and he's the freshman, 6'9", 250 from Miami, 22.5 points last year, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. So he averaged a double-double in his freshman outing, his only year in college. Looked like a solid guard, averaged 27 in his last game against UConn. As the NBA draft lottery is about to get started, they're going to show the representatives for each teams. Malika Andrews is there. Speaking with AJ DeBonsta, I was very fortunate, that I got to know a little bit about AJ, too, from the area. From Brockton, Massachusetts. He went to St. Sebastian's, then Prolific Prep. Then went to Utah Prep, which is now Utah Prep, which he graduated back in 25, but he was a 2026 graduate. He's actually 2 months older, a month and a half older than me. So, kind of cool that when you're that age, you realize, oh man, he's your age now. And I'm hoping that he can be a star. I hope he can be a star-studded player in the NBA, for sure. When he was named Massachusetts Boys Basketball Gatorade Player of the Year following his freshman season after averaging 19.1, 9 rebounds, 2.9 assists, and 2.5 blocks per game. But that's crazy for a freshman that you average a double-double in your first year. He went to St. Sebastian's in Needham. He had all these offers: Alabama, Arkansas, Baylor. I think we're gonna meet the representatives now for each team now, as the NBA draft lottery. The ping pong balls go into this big little tube, and it's rolled out, and they draw the numbers. It's different it's different like it is in the NHL. The NHL is much different with their draft lottery. They typically pick it handheld, and then they just show it the odds of that each team needs to land to get the number 1 overall pick. There's one representative. There's only one person that's the chief of security, only knows the picks of the draft, and he's the only one that knows the combinations that they need to win. 1-4-0, and Dallas needs a 1-8, 10, 14. That was last year when they drafted. It's so it's much different though than the NBA. NBA, they hand draw them. NHL, they just put it through the tube. They pull out a number and they say, "Oh, you get the 12th pick." And by the way, that was rigged. That was rigged. That was rigged, the NHL draft lottery. Canadian Gavin McKenna, who's Canadian, gets the number 1 overall pick. Colin Kneppel is representing the Hornets. For the Heat, it's Alonzo Mourning, who has a 1% winning the pick. Oklahoma City, the Thunder have Nick Collison, who's the team special assistant to the GM. For the Golden State Warriors, it's the assistant GM and player personnel, Larry Harris. The Milwaukee Bucks have called up Mallory Edens, daughter of Bucks Governor Wes Edens. For the Bulls, it is Tony Kukoc, the special advisor. Dallas Mavericks, they're bringing back Rolando Blackman, Mavericks legend, 4-time All-Star. Atlanta Hawks bringing their GM, Onzai Sala, who has a 9.8% chance of winning the pick. And the Memphis Grizzlies have Tayshaun Prince, the VP of Player Affairs. Sacramento, they have Scott Perry, the Kings general manager. Utah Jazz, they're bringing in their star Keontae George, who has 11.5-point favorites. Brooklyn Nets bringing in Vince Carter, their guard from 2004 to 2009. Then it's the Indiana Pacers, who are bringing in T.J. McConnell, their guard, who has a 14% of winning the pick. And finally, John Wall, representing the Washington Wizards, 5-time All-Star, the number 1 overall pick in the 2010 draft. So Vlasta Moravkova is from Ernst & Young and the chief security officer of the NBA. Those are the two that know the picks. And they have the picks sealed up in the envelope as we welcome Mark Tatum to introduce the NBA Draft Lottery. We're going to go a little bit slow here. As the 14th pick will be made by the Charlotte Hornets. The 13th pick will be made by the Miami Heat. The 12th pick will be made by the Oklahoma City Thunder. The 10th pick will be made by the Golden State Warriors. The 10th pick will be made by the Milwaukee Bucks. The 9th pick will be made by the Dallas Mavericks. So the Chicago Bulls move into the top 4. The 8th pick will be made by the Atlanta Hawks from the New Orleans Pelicans. The 7th pick will be made by the Sacramento Kings. So the Grizzlies go into the top 4. The 6th pick will be made by the Brooklyn Nets. So Utah just made it into the top 4. Either it's Indiana or Washington here for the 5th pick. The LA Clippers by way of the Indiana Pacers. So the Clippers will have the pick. So that means that it will be Chicago, Memphis, Washington, and Utah. So that's the draft lottery right now. The 4, we have called out 9 numbers. So right there, you got the Clippers, Brooklyn, Sacramento, Atlanta, Dallas, Milwaukee, Golden State, Oklahoma City, Miami, and Charlotte. those are the top 9 picks that were just read by Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum. So Indiana loses their first round pick to LA. I think this is the Paul George. No, it's not Paul George. So the fourth pick, the third pick, the second pick, and the first pick. I believe Washington wins this draft lottery. They haven't had the number 1 draft pick since John Wall, so I think the odds are very high for Washington to win now. I think Utah gets number 2, and then Washington gets the first pick. All right. We're back with the draft lottery now. They're going back from commercial break. This is outside Navy Pier in Chicago, where this is happening. The top 4 picks are about to be revealed. It is Memphis, Utah, Chicago, and Washington. I think Washington's going to get the first pick now. I think they're going to get it. So down to 4 teams. Washington, Utah, Memphis, and Chicago. Mark Tatum coming back to the podium to reveal all the names. The 4th pick will be made by the Chicago Bulls. The 3rd pick will be made by the Memphis Grizzlies. The 2nd pick will be made by the Utah Jazz, which means the number 1 overall pick will go to the Washington Wizards. And they will get A.J. Dembonsta. If they are a healthy team, they're going to be a playoff team. So there you go, your final 4. Chicago, Memphis, Utah, Washington. The first time they won the NBA draft lottery since John Wall. So it's been a while for Washington. AJ looking along too. Noticing that in 44 days, his new home will be in DC. So there you go. You're running down the order one more time. The 14th pick will go to Charlotte. The 13th pick will go to Miami. Hold on one sec. I gotta change this. Alright. Rerunning it again. The number 14th pick will be made by the Charlotte Hornets. The 13th pick will be made by the Miami Heat. The 12th pick will be made by the Oklahoma City Thunder. The 11th pick will be made by the Golden State Warriors. The 10th pick will be made by the Milwaukee Bucks. The 9th pick will be made by the Dallas Mavericks. The 8th pick will be made by the Atlanta Hawks in the Sadiq Bey trade with Brandon Ingram. The 7th pick will be made by the Sacramento Kings. The 6th pick will be made by the Brooklyn Nets. The 5th pick by the LA Clippers. The 4th pick by the Chicago Bulls. The 3rd pick by the Memphis Grizzlies. The 2nd by Utah. And the 1st pick going to the Washington Wizards. So Washington will get the 1st pick. So definitely we do see Cameron Boozer going to Memphis with this pick. After this lottery, it's going to be Dibonza to Washington. Utah will pick Peterson. Memphis is going to pick Cam Boozer. I think one shocker here is Chicago. I'm going to be honest with you. Chicago had a 4.5% chance of winning the lottery, and somehow they fall to the 4th pick overall in the draft. Memphis had a 9%. That didn't really shock me, but like Chicago really shocked me here in the draft lottery. But I think it's just really filling in the missing piece of Vucevic and Kobe White. That's why I think they could go guard and they could possibly go forward. Like a power forward like Caleb Wilson, or potentially go point guard and Keaton Wagler in the draft, or Flemings. So, meanwhile, folks, that will wrap up the NBA draft lottery. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Ben Smith. We'll see you all next time here, and I think we'll have one more stream before I go on vacation. So I'll be going on vacation on Thursday. So I'll be off for about a couple weeks. So see you all then. Peace out, y'all. Have a good night.
The following presentation is by Ben.